Good afternoon. Thanks, Willie. It's good to see everybody here. It's good to be in Georgia. What I'd like to do today is to tell you about discipline dignity, which is an approach that really teaches students how to behave responsibly, which is a little bit different than obedience. Responsibility means that children do the right thing when no one's watching. It's based on values, not fear of punishment or desire of rewards. And to help get us started into understanding how this works, I have a puzzle that I'd like the studio audience and those of you watching on TV to try to solve. It's kind of a difficult one, so be ready. It's tricky. The hardest thing about being an educator is that you never know when you accomplish anything, because everything is done in the future. One of my friends calls this the hidden harvest profession, because no matter what you do, you never know if it makes any difference. This is true of academics, and it's true of behavior. 20 years or 30 years is when we see the results. Almost every other profession you see a result when you finish. A doctor finishes surgery, the patient lives or dies. A lawyer gets a verdict. Even O.J. Simpson's over. For now. But in education, we never get a result. So one summer, you decide, I'm going to take an avocation that really has a chance for me to see instantly if I succeed or if I fail. And you decide you're going to climb a mountain. You train for a whole year. You join a mountain climbing club. You subscribe to mountain climbing magazines. You work out every day. How many of you have computers? Raise your hands. You find the website of mountain climbing on the internet. Have you found the websites yet for internet, for mountain climbing yet? No, haven't done that yet. Tonight you can do this. It's part of your assignment. And if you live in California, where I live, you join a support group, because in California we have support groups for everything. And the big day comes, you train for a year, and you start climbing the mountain. And as you go up the mountain, it's going very well, and you're feeling very proud of yourself and confident and eager. You keep going and going, and it's working very well. Halfway up the mountain, you discover it's getting difficult, and you're not sure you're going to make it to the top. And fear sets in, and doubt. You take a step, and you almost fall. You could have hurt yourself, or even worse, but you keep going. As you climb higher, you have to do every single step with precision, because you're not sure you're going to ever get to the top. You keep going. And with great perseverance and effort, somehow you actually get to the top. And when you get there, you're overcome with two extremely powerful feelings. It's the same feelings you feel whenever you accomplish something that really took a great deal of effort, something that was hard for you to do. The first is relief. Like after your first big test and you passed it, whew, I did it. And the second is pride. I did it. And as you look around the top of the mountain to see the view that you've earned, you notice on the other side of the mountain there's an escalator. If you took the escalator, you could have gone up in 20 minutes and had a cappuccino and a croissant. Could have read the New York Times. You could have gone in high heels, sandals, anything you wanted. So you go down the escalator, and you're walking back to your hotel, and you come across a friend of yours. Your friend tells you he's going to climb the mountain. And the puzzle is, do you tell him about the escalator? Do you tell your friend next to you for 1 second whether or not you tell your friend about the escalator and why or why not? Just take a minute to share that with each other. Okay, with a show of hands, how many of you did not tell your friend about the escalator? Did not. How many of you told your friend about the escalator? Okay, did any of you not have raise your hand yet? Because there's no other choice. It's one or the other. Of those of you who did not tell who told your friend about the escalator, how many of you did it to give him a choice? Okay, was there any other reason given? I've heard two reasons besides choice. The first is, if I didn't tell my friend about the escalator and he discovered it, he would be mad at me. And the second, I told my friend about the escalator because I wanted him to take it. Then I would be the only one who climbed the escalator. That's competitiveness. Well, there's a difference getting to the top of a mountain, taking an escalator, or climbing it. And in America, we seem to think escalators are better. It's affected the way we work. It's affected our value systems. It's affected education, and affects the way we treat children. And I'm going to use that as a model for the rest of what we're going to do in this session. First of all, let's look at our culture. This was once a culture that valued work. Work was something good, something honorable, and people who didn't work were looked as suspect. And today, if you work, you're a fool. We admire people who don't work very hard. Ball players refuse $70 million in a contract. Everything we do in our technology is designed to make things easier, not better. How many of you have a microwave oven? Could you raise your hand? All of you do. How many of you bought it to make your food taste better? If someone raised their hand, we don't go there for dinner tonight, I promise you that. It's easier and faster, right? You spend $300 to make your food taste not as good, but faster. My father died when I was 4 years old. So my grandmother moved in with me to take care of me, and I had one of the most greatest grandmothers that ever lived. She was the best cook I've ever known in my life. The smell of her cooking filled the house. How many of you had a grandmother who was a great cook? Can you remember the smell of her cooking? What does it smell like when you microwave? It smells like nothing. There's no smell. Kids today don't know this. Today kids think it's home cooked if you bake it, like it's, Paul Newman spaghetti sauce, and you don't have to put it in the microwave, so it's home cooking. Well, you know what your great-grandchildren are going to say to your children? My grandmother microwaves better than your grandmother. And it seems anything easier is better. When it comes to education, this has become a tragedy because we now value achievement, not effort. We grade for achievement. We test for achievement. We honor achievement. Kids who achieve well get all the goodies, and the kids who don't do well don't get this, even if they try. Every teacher knows some students who try very, very hard, and still get the lowest. Other teachers know kids that don't try at all, and they still get A's. They learn that there's no value in effort. The value comes from getting the goodies, and you don't have to try. If everybody had to try, then the whole achievement will go up. By focusing on achievement instead of effort, we're lowering our standards and ending up with mediocrity. This has increased when it comes to dealing with children, because some children don't play that game. Some children can't function in a system where they're compared instead of allowed to do their best, and whatever their best is, that's good enough. Nobody can do more than their best, but we require that in America, and even if we don't get it. So what happens is we have some kids that can't function in a school where they're required to behave better than they can behave, and where they can score higher than they can score, and we have a name for them. We call them discipline problems. Now, you don't need to be an educator to understand this. When my oldest son first gave his very first sentence in his life, I was a 7th grade English teacher, and he came up to me crawling, he said, "Dada, wah wah." Can you imagine my disappointment? I said, "David, that's not a sentence, that's only a fragment, there's no verb. What's wrong with you?" And then he started to crawl, and then he stood up and took his very first step. Guess what he did next? Fell over. And I said, "David, that's not walking, that's falling. Now, you're not going to get an A for this." Now, of course, I didn't do those things, and no parent does. Because you can't educate by stressing achievement, only effort. That's why achievement tests are useless, and why they do so much damage to our society. But it's an easy answer. You can measure achievement easier than effort, so we do it. Another escalator. When it comes to discipline, this gets to be even more serious, because you can't raise children with escalators. You can't raise children by trying to do things quickly. You have to do them with time and energy. The problem with children today is they don't have enough time with adults. There's not a single child in America that's suffering from having too much time with adults and parents and teachers. It's not enough. I want to just relate to you a story that happened to me last year that will help understand this. Today there's a cry in America that we're too soft on kids, that we're just too easy on them, and that we have to be tougher with them. If we're tough enough with kids, they'll start to behave, is the cry. That's because some people think we should be tougher on criminals. Whether or not we should be tougher on criminals is an open question, because we know the prisons don't work, even though we have more prisons in America than any other country on earth. But if they do it in prison, we want to keep it away from school, because the success rate of prison doesn't work. Have you ever heard that people say, we have to get tougher with kids? Well, how tough can we get with kids? I mean, how many of you think that we should give them more detentions, give them more suspensions, punish them more, send them to the office more, write their names on 1 million blackboards? Is that going to do any good? We have kids today who are raising their parents. We have kids today who come from homes with alcoholism and drug abuse. We have kids today that 5-year-olds are raising their 3-year-old children. We have kids today that come from wonderful middle-class homes where they interact with TVs more than their parents. Half our children in this country seem to be being raised by Roseanne, not by adults. So how tough are you going to be with these kids? Their lives are so much tougher than anything we've ever experienced. There's no way we can match this. We've got to find a different way. Dignity is better than toughness. I was in San Diego last fall, and I was giving a talk to the school, and the principal said to me, "It sounds good in theory, but how is this approach going to work with a hard kid like this?" And he points to this high school girl. This high school girl never missed a single day of school ever. The reason, it was a condition of her parole. If she missed a day of school, she goes back to jail. 14 years old, her boyfriend is a 28-year-old motorcycle gang leader from San Diego. She had spiked orange hair with a purple top. She had jewelry in parts of her body that was embarrassing to see. Rings through her tongue. That must have hurt. Any of you have rings in your tongue? No? No? Tattoos. And I asked if I could talk to her. Now, how tough are you going to get with a kid like this? Are you going to give her detention? She's been to prison. You going to call her parents? Or you going to call, maybe you call her boyfriend? You know? Hey, you know, your girlfriend called me a name today. You going to send her to the office? So the principal gets shot instead of you. There's very little we can do with girls like this. In New Jersey, last year, some teacher said, I want you to sit down or else. And the kid pulled out a gun and said, or else what? About 2 months ago, a fourth grader beat his teacher with his school bag until she died of a heart attack because she wouldn't stop. And he didn't try to kill her, but it happened. How tough can you get? Getting tough is not the answer. Kids like this know toughness. We've noticed in the last 5 years that there are more kids that behave out of control than ever before. What they do is worse, and the age they do it is younger. Whatever we're doing, it's time to start something else because getting tough is not working. All getting tough does with kids is it makes them think getting tough is the answer. They already are hard. So I asked the principal if I could talk to that girl in San Diego when I sat down with her. And I said, I'm writing a book on violence. Would you mind answering a couple of questions? And she said, who the blank are you? And why don't you get the blank out of here? I can't fill in the blanks on television, but you know what they are. They're bad words. And I said, well, you know, if you just answer a couple of questions, I'll put your name in my new book. She says, you will? She wasn't the kind of person to shy away from being noticed. I mean, you could see, she looked like someone from the Mad Max Road Warrior cartoons. Mel Gibson movies, one of those creatures. So I said, if you'll just answer 2 questions honestly, just 2 questions honestly, I'll definitely put your name in my book. And she said, okay, what's your questions? I said, you got to tell the truth. She said, I'm not afraid of anything. What's your questions? I said, are there any teachers in this room, this school rather, who you'll listen to? Well, if they ask you to do perform a task, you'll do it. If they ask you to obey, you'll do it. You'll sit down if they tell you to. You'll stop interrupting. She said, that's a dumb question. I said, well, just answer it. Yes or no. Tell the truth. She says, maybe 1 or 2. I said, what's different about these teachers from your other teachers? And then she started to think for a minute. And I thought she might even start to cry. And she looked at me and she said, you know something? They're so stupid because they believe in me. They think I can get a job someday. They think I can go to college. They think I might get married. Yeah, right, I'm going to get married. Look at me. I'm going to be dead or in prison in 2 years. I don't have a chance. And those stupid teachers don't believe this. They think I can become something someday. And then she started to cry and she said, you know something, man? It really matters. Getting tough is not going to be the answer. Kids know toughness. What they don't know is a path of people believing in them and having faith in them and giving them the skills and courage they need to succeed, not simply punishment. Punishment is never the answer. It's a coward's way out. It's an escalator. But we have in education today so many illusions about what works. Illusions about threats, for example. We think if we threaten a kid, we can get him to learn. I'd like to show you how this is an illusion. And I'm going to ask someone to help me in the audience. Laura, you want to come up here for a minute? Have a seat, Laura. I'm going to show you the illusion of a threat working. I'm going to threaten Laura. Laura, I'm tired of you being late. You come in here like this is your classroom. It is not your classroom. It is mine. You come in here late one more time, and you're going to have a problem because I called your father. And he said you're having a party next week. And you invited all your friends. If you're late one more time, young lady, the party is canceled. And you have to call every one of your friends and tell them that you were bad in school. Now, Laura, would you come to class in time if I said that?
I'd probably come if it mattered to me.
She would come if she believed me. If she doesn't believe that her father will do this, she'll never come. And so you might say, well, threats work. Look, she was coming late to class, and now she's coming on time. The threat worked. But did it? I think it's an illusion. Let's see what happens. On the other side, now I'm going to be the student. Laura, I want you to be the teacher.
Okay. This is the fun part.
My dad said I have to be in school. I don't want to be here, but I have to be here. So I'll be here. For some of you who who don't know, you might think this is an exaggeration, but for those who've been in the classroom know that this is typical every day. Go ahead, Laura. Let's say we just read The Three Little Pigs, and we're having a discussion, and I'm the student you call on. You're trying to get me involved.
Rick, I want you to sit up and give me...
Don't touch me! You can't touch me! My dad says you can't touch me.
Rick, I want you to sit up, and I want you to listen to what the rest of us are doing, and I want you to participate. Rick, Rick.
Don't touch me! Don't touch me! This is stupid. I hate pigs. Why are you always picking on me?
I'm not picking on you.
You're always calling me. This is dumb. Call someone who cares about pigs.
I want
The
you...
only pigs in this classroom are the teachers.
I want you to listen to
I don't
the
care
story.
what you want. This is dumb.
Come and sit down.
Thanks, Laura. That's right. Now, that might look like an exaggeration, and maybe it is for some. I don't need this. You can force the kid to come to class on time, but you can't force them to learn. There's no way to do that. Learning is voluntary. Learning comes from the heart, and from the spirit, and from the soul, and from the mind, all combined. Everybody in this audience has had the experience of getting an A in a test and had it taken it a week later and would have flunked it. That's not learning. That's a waste of time. It's a waste of the teacher's time, the student's time, everyone's. That is a waste of American experience and resources, and we've got to stop doing this. It's useless. Learning is a transformation of who you are to something else. You're not the same when you learn something. This is not acceptable. But any form of discipline that reduces learning does not belong in a school. The most important single criteria for discipline is, does it help someone become a better person? Not does it get them to conform to what I want. This is America, and we believe in helping people reach their potential, not become what someone else says they should become. Here's how I live my life. I live it this way almost every day, but it's kind of sad in a way, but it's true. I make a lot of mistakes. And then I learn from that mistake. So I go on to discover a brand new mistake. But if I don't learn from the mistake, I keep repeating it. Making a mistake is not a tragedy. Not learning from it is. Discipline is learning about how to do things better, not never making mistakes. So we have what we call discipline with dignity. It has three dimensions in this approach. The three dimensions, the first one is how to stop problems before they start. This is called the prevention dimension. And in prevention, what we're really after is how to treat kids in a way that they're welcome in the classroom and they belong there, setting up effective rules and consequences, and effective teaching. I'd like to give you an example of what I consider effective teaching that prevents problems from happening before they start. My youngest son, Danny, came home from school one day when he was in first grade, and he said to me, "Daddy, I have homework today, and I'm not going to do it, and you can't make me." I said, "Well, what's your homework?" He said, "I'm not telling him I'm going to watch television." I said, "Just tell him what the homework is. That's all I care about." He said, "You're not going to trick me into doing this, because I'm not going to do it." I said, "Just tell me what it is." He said, "I have 4 vocabulary words, and I have to write a sentence about every one of them, and they're really dumb words." I said, "What's the first word?" He said, "It's a dumb, stupid box." So I said, "Well, I know why you don't want to write a sentence about a box." He said, "You do?" I said, "Of course I do. Nobody told you it was a magic box." He said, "What's magic about it?" I said, "I'm not going to tell you, and you can't make me. I'm going to watch television." So he said, "I told you what it was. You've got to tell me why it's magic." I said, "Okay, I'll tell you how it's magic if you tell me how big it is." He said, "I don't know how big it is." I said, "Ask your magic spirit." He said, "I don't have one." I said, "Close your eyes and find it." So he went, "Yep, no magic spirit. Couldn't find one." I said, "If you're worthy, you can find it. You have to search deep and hard. And when you find it, you'll know it. But if you want to give up watch television, then that's okay." He said, "I can find it." "I found it! And how big it is?" "It's this big," and he goes like this. I said, "What color is it?" "Is it red?" "Don't ask me, Danny. You got to tell me." "It's red." And we kept doing this until he found out it was a bicycle he wants to get for his next present. His first sentence was, "My magic box has a big red bicycle." He wrote 5 sentences about the box. I had to trick him to stop him. So we'd go to the next word. Effective instruction takes kids on a magical tour. It doesn't just give them words to learn. It makes them want to learn. Anybody can give the instruction to learn these words. But a teacher gets kids to want to, not just do it. That's the secret of being a great teacher. You don't need discipline. in the sense of punishment when you teach that way. In the action dimension, what we do is, when kids do break rules, we have an effective way to deal with it and to try to get them not to get into power struggles, not to battle us. We don't use threats. We simply give the rule and the consequence privately, up close, and personal. In the resolution dimension, which is the final dimension, we deal with kids that are out of control and none of this seems to work with. We use special strategies that are designed for those kids where nothing works. Things are pretty creative and can't always be done with regular students, but they work with those where nothing else is available to us. As I said earlier, the goal of discipline with dignity is to teach responsibility, not obedience. And there's a difference. When you're obedient, you do what you're told. But when you're responsible, you make decisions for yourself. Obedience is based on avoiding punishment and getting a reward. Responsibility is based on living by your values. And America does not seem to be teaching its children values anymore. We debate it politically and religiously. They're debated, but they're not being taught. Kids don't learn solid values: cooperation, understanding, respect, and responsibility. Let me show you the difference between obedience and responsibility. I saw this in a cartoon. Any of you know Calvin and Hobbes? Any of you think that you're Calvin? Any of you wish you were Hobbes? Okay. Calvin screams in the door, "Mom! Hey, Mom!" And his mother says, "Calvin, stop yelling across the house. If you want to talk to me, walk over to the living room where I am." He says, "Okay," and very obediently he walks in and says, "I stepped in dog doo. Where's the hose?" So he was obedient, but he wasn't responsible. Responsibility comes from both choices and limits. We give kids choices, but we always have limits. If we have limits without choices, that's obedience. If we have choices without limits, that's chaos. Responsibility is making choices within a framework. And the school provides the framework, which are the rules. And the kid has to make the choices so that they're in control of what happens to them. Instead of telling kids what to do, we say, here are the limits. You have to decide how to solve this. I'll give you the best example I can. When my oldest son, David, was a senior in high school, he came to me and says, "Dad, I need new athletic shoes." I said, "Great, let's go buy some Converse All-Stars." He says, "Dad, you know that you're a total dinosaur?" I said, "Why am I a dinosaur?" He says, "Only dinosaurs wear Converse All-Stars." I said, "I wear them." He said, "See?" I said, "What do you want to get?" He said, "Nike cross trainers." I said, "I never heard of them. What are they?" He said, "They're scientifically engineered so you can play every sport." I said, "They're scientifically engineered?" David, let me give you a real good clue about life. If you can tie your laces, you can play every sport. You don't need engineering. He says, "Dad, well, I've learned something about children. When they want something from you, they plan this for weeks. They know exactly what to say to you to get you to respond. The best thing you can do when a kid asks you for something is say, 'Give me your best argument. I want to hear every single thing that you have to say, ask for. Best argument you can make. And then tomorrow I'll give you an answer.'" I was in Texas last year, and some man said to me, "Arguing with a kid is like mud wrestling with a pig. You both get dirty, but the pig loves it." So David says to me, "Dad, when you were my age, did you listen to records?" I said, "Of course I did. I'm not that old. I listen to records. I love music." He said, "And didn't you write your papers on your mother's typewriter? That's what you used to tell me all the time. You used to brag. I used to sit down and type all these papers out. Didn't you do that?" I said, "Yeah, I typed all the papers." He said, "But look at you now. Now, you use CDs and you have a computer. Why is it when you buy anything, you get the latest technology available? But whenever I buy something, I have to get what you had when you were a kid." So I said, "Okay, David, we'll get the Nikes. What's the difference?" Well, there was a difference, about $130. So we go to the store, and it costs $160 for a pair of Nikes. I said, "You know that you could go barefoot and get a used car for the same money?" He said, "Dad, you promised." And I said, "You're right." So we went to the ATM machine and took out $240, which is all the money I could afford for clothes for him to that particular time period. And I came back and gave it to him. I said, "David, here's $240. You can spend it any way you want, but I'm going to give you advice because I love you. Spend it wisely." He counts it. He subtracts $160 from $240. Comes up with a sweater and half a pair of jeans. He says, "Dad, there's not enough money here for me to get everything that I want." I said, "I know that." He said, I need more. I said, so do I. And if you ever get it, I promise you I'll give you some of it. But in the meantime, let me give you advice. Buy the Nikes. They're the best. And he said, but Dad, they're expensive. I said, don't be cheap. Get the good ones. He said, can I see if they're cheaper somewhere else? I said, of course you can. So we went into other stores and we found knockoffs, cross-trainer lookalikes. They weren't really Nikes, but they looked just like them for $80. He said, Dad, look at these. They're only $80. I said, they're not as good as Nikes. He said, for $80, who cares? And he buys them, and he's excited. He goes home and brags what a good shopper he is. That's responsibility, limits and choices. The limit was $240. The choice was how to spend it. Now, this could have been a phony choice. This could have been a choice like, you have to get Converse All-Stars, but you get to pick the color. That's not real. The choice has to be significant enough so the child knows that they've made something that affects their life. Otherwise, it's an illusion. It's very easy when we talk about choices to give illusions. Threats, which are the bane of education because they force people to do the minimum amount of effort, can be hidden to look like a choice. Imagine you're walking down the street. Now, this would never happen to you in this part of Georgia, but assuming it did. You're walking down the street, and someone comes up to you and puts a gun to your head and says, your money or your life? And you say, I'm a teacher. I don't have any money. I'm not even sure I have a life. I have a box of papers you can grade. How about those? Would that work? But let's say you say, that's a mean thing to do to somebody, and you should be ashamed of yourself. And the man says to you, what's your problem? I'm being humanistic. I'm giving you a choice. Is that a choice or is that a threat? What do you think it is? It's a threat. Why is it a threat? See, some people think it's a threat because the choices are both bad. But I could give you a choice that both are terrible, but it's different from this. Or imagine you're in a car accident, and you wake up and you're really hurt. It's serious, and the doctor says, I have really bad news. You've hurt your leg really bad. Now, I can amputate it and save your life. But if I try to save your leg, it will cost you your life in surgery. What do you want me to do? Is that a choice or is that a threat? That's a choice, isn't it? Now, they're both terrible, but it's still a choice. What's different from the money of your life or do you want the surgery is where the control is. Control. In the first case, the criminal has the control. But in the second case, the patient has the control. Whenever someone is in control and they give you a choice that they want you to make, either do what I say or I'll hurt you, that's always a threat. That is never a choice. That's an illusion. Okay, I want to give you some school examples. I want you to call out whether you think there's a choice or this is a threat. If you don't stop fighting, you go on the principle. The choice is yours. Choice or threat? It's a threat. Okay, now I'm going to ask you something. I'm going to go back to the person who put the gun to your head because I want to give you something very subtle. If I ask you for your money or your life and you give me your money, did I threaten you or did I give you a choice? If you give me the money, haven't I still threatened you? You gave it because you didn't want to, but because you had to. You didn't think it was the right thing to do. You did it to save your life. If you don't give me the money and I kill you, that was still a threat. It doesn't really matter what you did. What really matters is what was offered to you. A threat is determined not by the choice that's made, but by the choice that's offered. Because now I want to give you one that's subtle. What is this one? If you don't bring your work tomorrow, I'm going to put your name on the blackboard. Is that a choice or is that a threat? It's a threat. Now, some people would say it's a choice because it's up to you whether or not to bring your homework and do your work. It's also up to you whether or not you give me the money. It's irrelevant. If the choice is either being publicly humiliated or doing your work, that's a threat. If you do it, it's not because you want to do your work. It's because you didn't want your name on the board. It's still a threat. All right, here's a trick question for you. This one requires real thought. You can do your work now or you can do it during recess. Think about it for a second. All right, how many of you think it's a threat? How many think it's a choice? How many of you don't know? How many of you don't have a clue? The answer is it's a threat. Because if you do your work, it's not to miss recess. except for those kids who really like doing the work during recess. For them, it's a choice. So it's a trick question. It depends on the kid. You got to do a diagnostic first to know the answer. What we try to do with Discipline with Dignity is set up a structure that permits choices and when kids break rules. And I'm going to give you an example of a choice when someone breaks rules. Let's assume, I'll do back-to-back demonstrations of this. Let's assume we have two people here that just had a fight. Someone calls someone, we'll say, that Bill calls Mary a bad name. Calls her the big B word. She says, "You baby." And then Mary hits Bill rather. And I'm going to deal with Mary. I'm going to forget Bill for now, just so we can isolate this. And I go up to Mary and I say, "Mary, that's a terrible thing to do to someone. I never want you to hit again. If you hit one more time, you're going to the principal. The choice is yours." That would be a threat, wouldn't it? Now, what I like to do is just to give you 4 ways that you can evaluate whether a technique will work like this. One is, does it work? If it doesn't work, don't do it. We have too many things in school that don't work. We've got to get rid of them. Everything that doesn't work makes things worse, not only for that problem, but for every problem we have in the future. The second is, does it humiliate or dignify? If it humiliates, we get it paid back later. We face it some other time. It doesn't go away. Does it teach obedience or responsibility? If it's responsibility, the problem will probably go away. But if it's obedience, then all that's going to happen is the teacher won't see Mary hit Bill again because she's afraid of getting punished. So she'll hit Bill in the playground, or in the lunchroom, or in the school bus. It's not going to solve the problem. It's going to make it go underground. It's an illusion because the teacher says Mary's not hitting anymore. But the truth is, it's happening, and she can't see it. How many people in this room have ever got a speeding ticket? Could you raise your hands if you have? Okay, some of you are lucky you're not telling the truth. I can't tell which that is. After you get your ticket, were you upset that you got caught or that you sped? Did you slow down for 2 hours and watch the policeman? Every time you go by that one intersection, you slow down again? Because that's what threats and punishments do. You break the rule, but you're careful about getting caught. And the fourth one, does it motivate people to learn, or does it stop them from learning? The last major way we're going to look at whether or not a technique works is whether it leads to commitment. There can be no behavior change without a commitment. We want people to have commitment. Without commitment, there's no change. So, if Mary hits Bill, and I say, either you stop hitting, go to the principal, the choice is yours. Let's go through this list just a little bit. If she stops hitting, it's because, would she be humiliated or dignified? Would you feel humiliated or dignified? So you hit one more time and go to the principal. Would that be a humiliation or a dignity building thing? Humiliation. Would you do it to be obedient or responsible? Would you stop hitting, or would you stop hitting in front of me?
Stop hitting in front of you.
Stop hitting in front of me. Would you feel commitment to change? Would your motivation be high or low if I screamed at you this way? So even though the behavior changes temporarily, it's an illusion. It's not going to change long term. I've created nothing but a hidden problem that's going to erupt later. But here's some other choices. I would say, Mary, in this classroom, we don't hit. We have other things we can do when we have an anger problem. We can tell the person we don't like it. We can tell the person we want them to stop. That's the first thing. Tell them we don't like it, we want them to stop. The second thing we can do is to say, why don't you write her a note? When I get angry, I write notes. Any of you write letters to people when you're really angry? Sometimes you don't even mail them, but you write them. It takes off a lot. Write a letter. You can write me a letter to the teacher and say, I'm tired of being called names. I want someone to do something. And I would read this to the class and say, how many of you are tired of being called names? How many of you like being called names? What's good about being called names? What's bad about it? What should we do about it? Let the class decide. Now the fourth one is the one that requires courage. This is the anti-violence one. This is the one that most people have to learn. We can rise above it and not have to do anything at all. Let me ask you a question. If I call you a blackboard, does that make you a blackboard? No. What are you? You're a person, right? You're not a blackboard if I call you a blackboard. What if I call you a baseball bat? Does that make you a baseball bat? The answer is no. What if I call you an eraser? Does that make you an eraser? The answer is no. If I call you a baby, that doesn't make you a baby either. You're still a person. Just because someone calls you, it doesn't make you this. This is what we have to teach kids. So that would be a choice. Tell a person you don't like it, write them a note, write me a note, or walk away. There's no threat there. Now to get this set up, what we want to do is we want to have rules and consequences that work. And we start off by having really effective rules. Rules come from good principles. A principle is a value statement. It's an attitude. It's something that we believe in. A principle will be something like, schools will be safe. Schools are places where people learn. Schools will work in harmony. In school, we care about one another. A rule is about a behavior. A rule is be in class when the bell rings. Hand your work in when it's done. Keep your hands and feet to yourself. Rules that don't have principles will never work because there's no reason. There's got to be a reason for the rule the kid can understand that comes from their value base. There is no single way to stop somebody from breaking a rule if they want to break it. The only way to teach them to not break a rule is for them to believe it's wrong to do it. That comes from values, not fear of punishment. It's values. The values are our principles. So we start off with good principles, and each principle has a set of rules. I want to give you an example of how important it is to have the principles and rules together, not just rules. There's a store in San Francisco where I sometimes shop. It's huge. The line of cash registers goes all the way down for like 2 miles, it seems like. At this end is an entrance. At that end is an exit. There's no exit over here. There's no entrance down there. There's nothing in the middle. It's a very strange store, but that's California. So one day I had 4 hefty bags of groceries, and I'm right by the entrance. And I look around, there's nobody there. So I said, I'll go at the entrance. What's the difference? And I decide to leave. The manager comes up to me and says, sir, that's the entrance. Would you mind walking down there to the exit? And I said, why? What's the difference? He said, because that's the store policy, and I expect you to follow it. And walks away. Now, no one's watching. Before I ask you to predict what I did, how many of you would go out the exit, walk 2 miles down there? If nobody's watching, you're not going to get caught. No one's going to say anything. None of you, you'd all go at the entrance. You'd walk down. Some people will follow rules no matter what. Do that out of respect for the store or fear? Respect. That's better than fear. Well, if you predict what I would do, I walk to the exit. You all looked in amazement because you know I'm from the East Coast and I'm kind of arrogant. Well, the reason I did it is because he didn't say to me, that's the rule. I expect you to do it. Here's what he really said to me. This store is located across the street from a hospital. We have some people who shop here who come in wheelchairs. Some have crutches. Some have canes. Some have walkers. Some are elderly. Some have their arms in slings. We had the doors together, and people would just zoom out. They didn't pay any attention. People were getting hurt. So to protect the people who are our good neighbors from the hospital, we separated the doors. And now everybody who comes in that door knows they're safe. How many of you walk to the entrance now? Okay, what changed you wasn't the rule. It was the value it was based on, wasn't it? Values change behavior, not rules. And when we teach kids values, we can reach them. We can never reach them with rules. Those don't work. Good discipline focuses on values, not punishments. So we start off with principles. The principles are what we stand for, what we believe in. Then we have rules. The rules are the behaviors. Finally, we have consequences. When rules are broken, there have to be consequences. We offer 4 types of consequences because we need consequences to choose from. Not all consequences work in every situation with every child. And we don't go lockstep sequential. Like the first time you break a rule, you get number 1. The second time, number 2. We don't do that because we want the consequence to match the situation. We want to match it. We don't want to just do structure that has nothing to do with the actual circumstances. The first kind of consequence we have is natural logical. Then we have conventional ones. Then we have generic. And then finally we have education, instructional or educational. And I'm going to give you an example of each one of those before we end. First, natural logical. I'll give you one from the home and then 2 from the school. One from the home is this. I used to, being a single father, I used to like doing the dishes. I don't know if anyone can understand what a single parent would like to do the dishes, but single parents do dishes all the time. When we're home, our kids are always on top of us. They never give us a break. They're always around us. So when we say it's time to do dishes, they run and leave us alone because they don't want to help. So it's like freedom without guilt, which is really great when you're a single parent. But I really hated having to take the dishes from the table and bring them into the kitchen. And my kids would be very fast. They're really good kids, but they're always in a hurry. They're kind of like me, really moving all the time. And I'd say, "You forgot the dishes! Go get the dishes!" And I'd punish them and yell at them and scold them and do everything that I don't believe in doing with other kids that I would do with my own. The hardest thing about doing this is that I have to look at myself in the mirror and say, am I doing this with my own kids? None of this works. It works for a day, and then they go back to leaving the dishes. So finally, as a natural consequence, I simply left the dishes. In natural consequences, we don't rescue the kid from the problem they create. We leave them with the problem. We don't get angry. We don't solve it. It's theirs to solve. So leave the dishes. Next day, they have dinner on the same dishes as the night before. "Dad, this dish is disgusting." "You're right. Here's more potatoes." That's how you solve the problem. Now in school, I'll give you two examples. One happened in a middle school. A lot of the girls were putting lipstick on in very thick coats. And they were going around kissing the mirrors, the windows, all the glass, leaving trails of lipstick prints. And no one could seem to solve this problem. But one of the custodians actually solved it. I don't know if any of you worked in middle schools, but middle school girls never go to the bathroom alone. They always go in packs of about 20 to 30. It's like, I don't know what they do there, but they're all in there. And one day this female custodian walks in and sees this girl kissing the mirror, and she says, "I finally caught somebody. Now you're going to clean this up." And the girl says, "It wasn't me. I didn't do it." And the custodian says, "I saw you do it. How can you say you didn't do it?" She said, "These lipstick prints were here when I got here. I was just seeing if they matched my lips." They're fast. The custodian says, "Clean this up." And the girl says, "No, I'm not going to." The custodian says, "I'm going to count to 3. And the girl says, "Count to 3 million. I really don't care." 1, 2, 3. Now clean this up. "No!" "Okay, sweetheart, let me do it for you this time." So she takes her mop and she swishes it in the toilet and cleans the mirror. No one never kissed the glass in that school again. That was over. The natural consequence was, if you kiss the glass, you kiss the toilet. How many of you would kiss the glass if it was clean with toilet water? Now, the second natural consequence example happened in San Francisco with a friend of mine who was a principal. And she's a great principal, has a brand new school that was renovated. And she had problems with kids actually going to the bathroom on the floor, not using the new urinals. And her husband was able to solve this problem. What he did is he went duck hunting and found these little waterproof targets. And they put one in every single urinal. And the kids learned that, well, they saw the targets, and some of you women don't know this, but men are competitive. If we have targets, we aim for them. And that solved the problem. Instead of punishments and threats, give a young man a target. They'll go for it. Now, a conventional consequence is what we take consequences that already exist and we modify them. An example would be, instead of giving a kid detention, which is useless, have them stay after school with 3 conditions. The first condition is that the teacher who asked the kid to stay stays with them. The second, we do not just have the kids sit there, but they practice and learn something new about how to solve the problem they came with. They should leave with a new skill or a new attitude or a new behavior so they can master something. It isn't punishment, it's teaching. And the third is, when it's over, it's over. So we don't say, 3 hours or 5 hours or whatever. We say, you have something to learn, and when you learn, that's it. The generic consequences are things like choices, which I showed you before. And plans and choices are examples of generic consequences. The last one's instructional. I'm just going to set up a quick situation. Laura, you want to help me one more time? Have a seat. Laura was a student who, someone took her pencil, and I asked her to get the pencil back herself. She had to solve it herself. So she came to me and said, I asked for the pencil, and he wouldn't give it back. So this is an example of instructional consequence. Okay, Laura, what happened when you asked for the pencil back?
He told me he wasn't going to give it back.
Okay, now I want you to ask for the pencil back the way you asked Johnny for the pencil.
Johnny, give me my pencil back.
Okay, now I can see why he didn't want to give it back to you. It sounds to me like you were threatening him and attacking him. I'm going to ask for the pencil back in a way that might be more effective. See if you can see a difference. Laura, I want the pencil back, and I really want it back now.
I'm not giving it back.
I really want it back, Laura.
I'm not giving it back. Forget that. You're not getting the pencil.
I really want it back. Okay, now do you see something different from what you did than I did?
Well,
Did
you told me over and over
Mm.
again.
Was my voice slower or faster than normal?
Faster a little
No,
bit.
let me say it again. Laura, I want the pencil back now. Slower, isn't it?
Mm.
And I got closer, didn't I?
You
And
got real close.
I got real close. I looked right in the eye, didn't I? And I didn't raise my voice, did I?
No.
No. Because I really want you to know that I wanted it back without threatening you. Can you try it that way? The way I did it?
Sure.
Let me see you do that. Go ahead.
Johnny, I want my pencil back.
Okay, get a little closer. Look me right in the eye and say slower. I really want my pencil back. No anger at all, just sincerity.
I really want my pencil back.
That's a lot better. Thank you, Laura.
Did I get the pencil?
I don't know. That's up to Johnny. The point I'm making here is in an instructional consequence, we actually teach the skill instead of getting angry for them not having it. Kids don't know everything. Discipline dignity really is about climbing mountains, not taking escalators. And by using principles, rules, and consequences, and giving kids choices, and respecting their dignity, we have a real chance of getting behavior change that's not an illusion. Threats and punishments, writing names on blackboards, these don't work. Kids don't seem to be getting better. They seem to be getting worse. If we don't make a change, we're going to lose our children. It's time for every person who works with children to commit to making life better for them. Thank you very much.